Lisa Krizek is an esteemed executive, having led real estate, leasing, and accounting teams for brands that are household names. Now she's giving back as the executive director of the NRTA.
As non-customer facing roles, we don't necessarily impact sales, but we can impact the bottom line. And that's what the NRTA is all about.
Hello, and welcome to the Lease Alert, where we have conversations with the smartest, most interesting people at the intersection of real estate, leasing, and accounting. I'm your host, Matt Waters. Let's learn something together. Lisa, welcome to the Lease Alert podcast.
Matt, thank you for having me. I'm very excited about the opportunity to talk to you about a field that I love and a career that I really enjoy.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for being here. Well, let's dive right in. So I know you have a wealth of experience. As I mentioned, it covers real estate, leasing, and accounting. Can you tell us about how all of those disciplines came together in your career?
Sure, probably with my previous employer, Ascena Retail Group. I started in 1994. At that time, it was known as the Dress Barn. And prior to that, I had been the director of lease administration for Melville Corporation, which I think a lot of people don't even recognize the brands anymore, but two actually did last very long, and they're still out there, Marshalls and CVS Pharmacy. At one point, they were under a holding umbrella with about 14 other retailers like Tom McCann and Chess King and Foxmore and Linens and Things and some of the brands that are no longer with us. And at that time, I had been a real fresh graduate, right out of college, but really interested in retail and shopping. And I came upon this advertisement for someone was looking for a lease administrator, as I said, for Melville Realty Company, which was the real estate arm of Melville Corporation, which was the holding company for all of those retailers. And they had about, at that time, 9,000 different leases, because they were also the license agreement for the shoe department for Kmart stores. So it was Mel Disco. And they actually had their headquarters in Mahwah, New Jersey. And so I started my retail career with Melville Realty in Mahwah, New Jersey, and coincidentally ended my retail career with Ascena Retail Group in the same building in Mahwah, New Jersey. We had about 9,000 leases, and it actually imploded in 1995 and 1996. It was divested, and found myself looking for a new job. And the folks at Dress Barn, I had known, wonderful person, still a wonderful person, Elise Jaffe, who did their real estate. And we had met a few times at a couple of industry functions. And she asked me if I would be interested in coming over to the Dress Barn team. And I joined Dress Barn in February of 1996, and I never looked back. At that time, we had about 400 locations. And over a 27-year term with Dress Barn, we grew to be over 7,000 locations with 7 brands. We were very successful, in the mergers and acquisition area, and trying to figure out, okay, how do you get all of this information from a different platform into your platforms, and what do you do? And I wouldn't have been able to do that, and I would not have been able to climb the corporate ladder, so to speak, if I also wasn't a member of the NRTA at the time. The NRTA to me was an amazing opportunity for me to learn about the real estate administration education. And it was actually through my connections with NRTA that I realized we were kind of a little lopsided when I first joined Dress Barn. We had real estate, but accounts payable had all of the occupancy expenses. But real estate and accounts payable never spoke to one another. And so they very rarely knew whether a store was open or closed. They very rarely knew whether a store had renewed, and the terms and conditions of those store terms or store leases had changed. And I said, well, this is a little upside down. In a perfect world, what should that look like? And so I really leaned heavily on the NRTA founders, Mola Liberté and Paul Kinney, Mo was actually a counterpart of mine. He worked for CBS when I worked at Melville. And Paul actually stumbled upon him because they both shared a standalone location in Massachusetts, where I believe Friendly's was a subtenant of CVS. And so they got to know one another because they could figure out who was responsible for, fixing the parking lot, so to speak. So, really, I learned all the ins and outs on who our partners should be internally, or learned where all of our external communications needed to be, and how many different people within the landlord organization we needed to partner with in order to be successful. So it started honestly with the good administration of the terms and the conditions of the lease. And everything in my world was, per the terms of the lease. We weren't looking to change the terms of the lease. We were looking to adhere to the terms of the lease. And by doing that, we expected that the landlord would be in good faith compliance with the terms of the lease as well. So as our portfolio grew, or as the Ascena portfolio grew, so did my responsibilities, and so did my teams. And so we always challenged ourselves to ask ourselves, what makes sense? What's the right way to do this? Is there a faster or more efficient way of handling the real estate? Because we found that we had a tremendous amount of real estate, within the portfolio. And Matt, you know better than anyone that real estate can be either number 2 or number 3 on the P&L, behind cost of goods sold and behind payroll.
Right.
You're talking about a very large number. And we just wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with the terms of those leases as best as could be. We were also a public company, so we had an obligation to our shareholders to make sure that those terms were adhered to. And so it was really through the building of what I thought was a great and successful team that we were able at the end, when we got to the 7,000 store mark, to be managing about $1.5 billion in occupancy expenses.
Wow.
It was significant.
Yeah. And that was from the lease administration side of things and the accounting side of things, right? All under your group.
All under my group. I mean, historically, it was the old 840 straight line, which was also, we worked very closely, and I had a wonderful analyst on my team that made all of those necessary calculations for us. As 842 was hovering around, and 842 was coming for about a 15, 16-year period.
That's right.
Before we finally pulled the trigger. But, at that time, it gave us an opportunity to just kind of look at our processes that we had internally. Were they correct? Did we have the information that we needed to in order to make sure that we had the right information for the 842 disclosures? And we really reached out even further, and we partnered with our financial team. I would tell you, historically, it was the real estate people, the legal teams, and the lease administration and accounting teams. But then we really needed to kind of hook in or bring under the tent, so to speak, our financial partners, both our internal partners as far as internal reporting and our external partners. At the time, we used Deloitte, and they actually helped us adopt. And it was a major undertaking to adopt with over 7,000 leases.
Oh, I bet. That's fascinating, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that journey with us. And a couple of things I want to highlight. One, you pointed out that NRTA has been a big part of your journey, and that's actually a way that you're able to network. And we're going to talk more about NRTA later. And it seems like that's actually a better way to network than the way Paul had to do it at one point by squabbling over common area maintenance, it sounds like, with parking lot repairs. And two, I wanted to highlight, and I speak about this all the time. Matter of fact, I've spoken on this for the NRTA, and students probably get tired of me saying it, but I will continue to say it. Such a key to success in lease accounting and lease administration and real estate is communicating with the different groups. Some companies have all of those in one area. Some companies have those in different areas of the company, kind of siloed, even sometimes reporting up to different VPs and executives. But regardless, communication is so important between accounting and lease administration in particular. And I tell people this all the time: you can't perform the duties of a lease accountant without the data that lease administrators provide, the lease abstract. That's actually the key variables, most of them, that give you the ability to make lease accounting calculations. So I love the way you highlighted that those teams need to be so integrated.
There's no way to figure out what to start, what to stop, or what to continue, without that communication. It is
Yeah,
key.
for sure. You touched on something else that I want to highlight. And well, I guess really two things: growing real estate portfolios. You talked about growing through acquisitions, business combinations, sometimes called purchase accounting. And then you also talked about sometimes retail and other companies shrink real
Mm-hmm.
estate footprints. There's this constant, ebb and flow, I guess I would say, of, you're expanding your real estate footprint, you're shrinking your real estate footprint. Sounds like you've lived through that on several different occasions. So, can you give us a few lessons learned from growing and shrinking real estate footprints?
Well, sure. I mean, it all circles back again to using that, NRTA network, because there we have the opportunity to talk to other people who are in the roles, who have the
Mm-hmm.
same deliverables, that we do, and may have actually experienced exactly what it is that we're trying to problem solve for. So I will tell you that I learned about portfolio optimization
Mm-hmm.
from two or three of the, speakers that I was fortunate enough to attend. We also learned about property insights through tools that we were exposed to. And so I would tell people, probably the best advice I can give you is never stop learning. The need for continuing education and the exchange of ideas is kind of the cornerstone of attaining any high professional standard. So I will tell you, organizations are going to continue to change,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this quickly, evolving marketplace. And what that means is folks are going to be asked to do different things with the real estate. Historically, we were primarily retail. In the past, I will tell you, probably a good percentage of the attendees were retail focused. But now these folks are being asked to participate in different types of thought leadership, office per se.
Mm-hmm.
What does that future look like, right? And how will those organizations work? And distribution, with the merger of brick and mortar and e-commerce, what do those real estate classes look like? And how do you steward those? How do you protect, your organization? So those are some of the lessons that I was always challenged with, because there's always going to be something new. Change happens.
Mm-hmm.
Change is not ever easy. So change management, it's not always easy. But I will tell you that things like this podcast, are valuable because they're letting you know you're not in this alone. There
Mm-hmm.
are other people, other resources out there that can help, other organizations that can help. And NRTA has been on the cusp of this, and probably one of the few organizations that I know that have been dedicated 100% to education and to educating members specifically to improve, profitability.
That's fantastic. So, Lisa, I love your passion about learning and education and networking. And it sounds like NRTA has been a huge part of your success and your journey. I'll say it's kind of emerged as a common theme this season on the podcast. I might not even remember everybody who has mentioned
We've
this
mentioned it.
type
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
theme, but I'll tell you, we've had a CPA, Harvard MBA alum who has now founded a company. And she said her biggest break in her career came not through Harvard, but through the AICPA, the accountants professional organization, AICPA. And then we had a real estate broker who has had extreme success in his field. He said basically he closed the biggest deal of his career that anybody in the real estate brokerage industry would say was akin to winning a Masters.
Mm-hmm.
He said
Mm-hmm.
he closed that deal utilizing knowledge that he learned at a Cornet conference, which of course is the organization that a lot of real estate brokers and corporate real estate professionals are a member of. Then we had another gentleman who is now a successful vice president at a major, one of the top brokerage firms in the world. He's a vice president there. He runs their lease audit practice. And he said he learned so much from NRTA, and NRTA has actually given him some of the biggest breaks in his career. And so, Lisa, now I hear you telling me that NRTA also proved to be a vital part of your career progression, and the experience that you had there networking with people, learning from instructors, really made a big difference in your career. And now I also know you have transitioned to become the executive director of the NRTA. So if there was any question before about if you're passionate about about this topic, now we can remove all doubt. You're actually devoted now to advancing the mission of NRTA, and really, I wanted to ask you even more detail. What's the NRTA, first of all, and what is the NRTA up to these days?
Well, let me backtrack just a little bit, because I don't think I would have attained the vice presidentship in my role if it hadn't been for the NRTA and the networking and, quite candidly, the friends that I met all along the way. What's great about the NRTA is that it is 100% volunteer based. Everyone who is a member is in the industry. Everyone who is on our committees are subject matter experts in the industry. Everyone who speaks for us is a member of the industry. I don't know any other volunteer-based organization out there. And they were, as I said, they were tremendous for me in providing me guidance, in always being there when I asked a question. And if I could say anything to folks, don't be afraid to ask the question. The only question, that's a bad question is the one that's never asked. So ask the question and get some information and talk to people about what, your potential solutions could be. As I said, I learned about portfolio optimization from the NRTA. I learned not to be afraid to close a location and to try to reposition it. I also had a CEO at the time who truly believed the mantra, if you did what you always did, you get what you always get. So you need to kind of, change things up a little bit, rebrand yourself, redevelop yourself, and really stay in tune and understand your customers. And honestly, that's what NRTA does. They address topics that are impactful to our members today, and also what will be impactful in the future. We've kind of broadened the real estate assets that we provide both in the curriculum and content for. And I guess it's because we recognize that there are a number of challenges and opportunities that various organizations are trying to work through. And I can tell you, I learn something every year. And I went back 27 years in a row.
Wow.
And I learned something every year. And I think that's why when Paul Kinney decided to retire, he kind of reached out to me and he said, Lisa, you've been on the journey. He said, you're one of the few people that I know that's only missed one conference. And I only missed one conference. And it was in 2001. And it was mostly because it was right after September 11th. And my husband had lost a cousin.
Wow.
Imagine going for an interview in that restaurant that was all the way up at the top of the building.
Oh, no.
Going for a job interview. Yeah,
Wow.
It was awful. But that was the only one conference that I ever missed because I was afraid to fly at the time. And Paul said to me, I don't know if I could replace your energy. I had always volunteered on the conference committee. I had always volunteered on the curriculum committee. Again, it just gave me opportunities to connect with people and to talk to people and see if their organizations were facing the same struggles and challenges, that we were. And I don't know if people realize how vitally important that is to have that connection with
Yeah.
someone else who's doing that in your role. And as I said, I don't know any other organization, out there that's able to do that. And again, it's completely nonprofit. It's completely 100% volunteer, and it's dedicated to real estate administration education. I don't know of any other, resource out there like that. So I think it's easy to find us. All you have to do is Google nrta.org, and we have several different opportunities. We have a conference that's an on-site event that's going on right now on September 8th to the 11th. We would love to have you there. We have probably close to over 60 classes that we're running, in addition to another 20 or 24 breakout sessions, all, as I said, on topics about real estate and what to do with the real estate. We focus on occupancy cost management. We focus on legal negotiations, drafting. We focus on real estate management, not so much the site selection, because the baton has already been handed to us, once the lease is signed, but what's a good, effective way to maintain relationships with your landlords during the terms of those leases. What does that look like? We have some leadership classes. We have some technology classes for those that feel perhaps they want to hone up a little bit on their Excel skills, their PowerPoint presentation skills, or fix some letter drafting, some business letter writing and letter drafting type classes. It's amazing. And as I said, I have gone every year. I've attended classes every year. Even as the executive director, I will attend a class, and I find it invaluable.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, I have to ask you, Lisa, and I think this ties in pretty well. You mentioned the pace of change and the way organizations, companies are always changing, shifting. NRTA actually shifted as well a few years ago. I'm talking about the name, right? When I first became aware of NRTA, it stood for the National Retail Tenants Association. But now the name shifted slightly, but it shifted nonetheless. Can you tell us about how that took place?
Sure, that took place. We shifted, and we are now known as the National Real Estate Tenants Association. It was really an outreach on our part to find out what types of uses the landlords were putting in all of those other boxes that the retailers vacated during COVID. There was always a cycle to real estate pre-COVID, but it really accelerated, during our pandemic. And so we wanted to know what was taking the places of those traditional retailers. And we found a lot of different types of uses. We found insurance companies. We found childcare centers. We found banks. We found medical offices. And so we reached out and we said, look, we know you have a portfolio of leases. We have the talent and we have the teams that can assist. We know in some instances, these are smaller portfolios in total. Maybe you have one particular medical facility that has 10 or 20 leases. They're really looking at staffing and operations. They're not really looking at, real estate management. Let us help you. Let us expose you to some vendors that can assist, to some tools that can assist, to some people, that can assist. So we recognize that these types of tenants have some of the same challenges as the traditional retailers do. And we wanted to let them know that we were there for them and that we had this program. And so, as I said, slowly we have been adapting to see, is there anything that we need to do differently when we're speaking about medical leases as opposed to, a regular traditional retail lease? Is there anything that we need to address differently when we're speaking about financial or banking, type leases than we do when we're talking more about traditional leases? I mean, we even have some parking lot people, the Icon parking lot people are members. So these are folks that recognize the need to, again, administer the terms of the lease properly so that they can add to their company's bottom line. And that's the goal. The goal is always to make a good location better and a great location, outstanding. That's the challenge. We don't necessarily, as non-customer facing roles, we don't necessarily impact sales, but we can impact the bottom line. And that's what the NRTA is all about. We're all about helping impact that bottom line, again, through training, through resources, and through tools.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what a great point about the bottom line. And you're right. It's easy for companies to lose that perspective. That's something else that I like to point out. I mean, just think about, let's take a retail company, for example. I worked at Home Depot and I know a little bit about the margins there and the margins at other retail companies. And then, of course, I know about how much money real estate initiatives can save. And so let's say, just hypothetically, let's say a real estate deal took place, maybe a shift of location, right sizing of an office or something like that. Let's say it saved $1 million a year, which is completely reasonable. Well, that's great. That might just be an asterisk somewhere, right? If you tell the CFO we saved $1 million. I mean, we're talking about $100 billion company, in the case of Home Depot or something like that. So $1 million is great, but think how many hammers and nails Home Depot would have to sell to drop $1 million to the bottom line. It's a lot. We're talking about a significant impact, and it's all in how you present the numbers. And to learn how to present the numbers in the best possible way, you have to gain knowledge. And again, I'm a big believer in the NRTA and supporter. Matter of fact, I'll be at the annual conference this year. Your volunteers have already convinced me to volunteer to teach 3 classes. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope that folks will attend and pick up some of this great knowledge that we've been talking about. Also take advantage of the opportunities to network with peers from across, the country. And I do want to ask you one more time, Lisa, can you give us the details again, the dates and the location for the NRTA conference this year?
Absolutely. This year, the on-site event is September 8th to the 11th, and it will be hosted at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center, and that's in Grapevine, Texas. We also have a couple of other opportunities as well, those that we consider to be our virtual offerings. We right now have a certified commercial lease administrator certificate, which we've actually tapped folks like Matt and a few others in the industry because we really want to be known as best in class. And so we are offering a best in class certificate to people who want to truly be the best lease administrator that they can be. And we are marketing this certificate program to HR departments within various employers and organizations, and let them know that if they hire somebody who has taken this certificate, they will succeed because we will train them or have trained them to succeed in this particular role. So we have an online certified commercial lease administrator program that will kick off again on October 8th. And we will also be offering top 5 challenges, what we call our Classroom Live opportunities, which, believe it or not, CoStar has helped us host these in the past. And these are going to be just tricks and tips for the top 5 challenges in lease administration, the top 5 challenges in lease accounting, the top 5 challenges in working in a hybrid work environment, because we know a lot of things have changed post-COVID as well. So we do offer some virtual opportunities on top of the annual conference, and we hope that you guys take advantage of this. There's a lot of us out here who are telling you that this has been a very beneficial organization to be a part of.
For sure. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you also for all the work that you do for the NRTA, both in the past as a volunteer and then now as the executive director. You're really making a difference for our industry. I'll give you my personal thanks and also just say thank you on behalf of the entire real estate, lease accounting, lease administration community. Thank you so much for all the hard work and your efforts there.
Thank you. it wouldn't be possible without volunteers like you. And so I thank you too, because again, we are very grateful for those who are willing to pay it forward. And as we have told our CCLA students, what they're going to gain is the experience, and they're going to hear the stories, and they're going to see where we made mistakes, and they're going to understand that, oh, if there was a certificate like this, or if there was an organization, or if I had been involved in this organization sooner, I could have avoided making that mistake.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Lease Alert. I'd be grateful if you would like and subscribe wherever you listen. Until next time, keep learning and leasing.